They're banning the operations of Russian oil companies like Lukoil and Rosneft, and they're trying to control our trade, our investment cooperation, and our military technical ties with our largest strategic partners, like India, for example, and other BRICS members.
A new geopolitical flashpoint. Russia's Foreign Minister Sergey Lavrov has accused the United States of trying to block India and other key partners from buying Russian oil. Speaking to TV BRICS, Lavrov claimed Washington is using what he called unfair and coercive methods to interfere in Russia's trade and military ties with friendly nations.
They're banning the operations of Russian oil companies like Lukoil and Rosneft, and they're trying to control our trade, our investment cooperation, and our military technical ties with our largest strategic partners, like India, for example, and other BRICS members.
Lavrov also pointed to past diplomatic engagements, including peace talks held in Alaska last year, accusing the U.S. of relying on sanctions, tariffs, and outright bans to disrupt Russia's trade flows and investments. He said these measures are designed to fracture partnerships within the BRICS bloc. Meanwhile, India has pushed back against any suggestion of external influence. Union Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal clarified that India's purchases of Russian oil are made independently by domestic buyers, guided solely by national interest and market conditions. He stressed that India's energy decisions are not linked to the recently concluded interim trade framework with the United States. India's Ministry of External Affairs has also reiterated that energy security remains a top priority for the country's 1.4 billion people. The MEA emphasized that diversifying energy sources, regardless of geopolitical pressure, is central to India's long-term strategy. As tensions rise between Washington and Moscow, India's balancing act between diplomacy, markets, and energy security is now firmly in the global spotlight.
The United States, which for many years has been the engine of the global economy and the regulator of global finance, has used the role of the dollar to strengthen its dominant position. It is already objectively losing its economic influence and its weight in the global economy. At the same time, countries such as the People's Republic of China, India, and Brazil are rising. Very interesting processes are taking place on the African continent, linked to the fact that Africans increasingly want to stop exporting their natural resources and instead build up their own industry, as the Soviet Union began to help them do, and so on. Many centers of rapid economic growth, centers of power, centers of financial and political influence have appeared. The world is being reshaped. This is happening in a competitive struggle. The West does not want to give up its once dominant position. Moreover, with the arrival of the U.S. leader Donald Trump's administration, this struggle to suppress competitors, if you will, has become particularly evident and open. In fact, the Trump administration in Washington does not hide its ambitions, saying, "We must dominate the energy sector. We will restrict our competitors." In April, the law on the state of emergency was extended, the core of which is the punishment of Russia, the introduction of sanctions against Russia, including the freezing of our gold and foreign exchange reserves. This is stated explicitly in connection with Russia's hostile behavior in the field of foreign policy. Examples cited include interference in the United States elections, something that President Trump categorically opposes and rejects on a daily basis, and violations of international law and human rights. You name it, it's all there. This is pure Bidenism, which Trump and his team reject. Nevertheless, the law was quietly extended, and sanctions against Russia remain in place. Sanctions were imposed on Lukoil and Rosneft in the fall, a couple of weeks after a very good meeting between Russian President Vladimir Putin and Trump in Anchorage. Remaining as open as India, China, Indonesia, and Brazil to cooperation with all countries, including, of course, such a major power as the United States, we find ourselves in a situation where the Americans themselves are creating artificial obstacles along this path. We are simply forced to seek additional secure avenues for the development of our financial, economic, integration, logistical, and other projects with the BRICS countries. This is not directed against anyone, especially the United States. It is simply because the United States is exercising strict control over all processes in the areas I mentioned and demanding unilateral concessions. Therefore, without refusing to engage with them to the extent that they are willing to do so on a mutually beneficial basis, we are of course interested in working with our BRICS partners to create an architecture that will not be subject to the unlawful actions of any player on the Western flank. The process of forming the Greater Eurasian Partnership, Vladimir Putin's international initiative to create comprehensive, mutually beneficial economic cooperation, is underway. It began with relations between the Eurasian Economic Union, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and ASEAN. In this context, they also took into account the People's Republic of China's Belt and Road Initiative. The heads of the executive bodies of each of these organizations meet periodically to exchange information about the plans that each of them has and is developing. This allows them to make decisions about which projects can be implemented more effectively and at lower cost through cooperation rather than duplication. This cooperation can be seen in the North-South International Transport Corridor, in projects connecting Southeast with our Far East, as well as in projects related to the joint use of the Northern Sea route. So these processes are ongoing. Some are now actively trying to introduce artificial intelligence into the military sphere. Probably it is the right of every country to see how this will happen, but already there are attempts by some countries to subjugate, to create some kind of mechanism under their control, and to subordinate to this mechanism everything that states do, can do, and have the right to do with artificial intelligence in the military sphere. It is clear that countries such as the BRICS members will not allow such an infringement of their sovereignty, but transparency in this area is still very important.